The race is on for wide receiver one at UCF this offseason. Who's going to rise to the top? Always bet on black.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every single day. Turn us up and turn us on. It's my good friend, Andrew. He covers UCF sports better than anybody I know. As a matter of fact, I wake up every day with a motivation, Andrew, to cover UCF because of your energy and enthusiasm. But look, we're talking about depth chart issues today. I shouldn't say issues, just, the depth chart's got to work itself out. There were a high amount of transfers that came into this program. Scott Frost talked about that attrition and replacement at Big 12 Media Days. But we're going to start at wide receiver. We talked a lot of quarterback, but there's good production that needs to be replaced at wide receiver. We'll talk there. We'll move to running back, and then we'll do a quick temperature check on the program. But coming back to wide receiver one, Kobe Hudson was the leading receiver on this team last year. They've got to find a new go-to guy, and there's a particular name that you are hot on. I think I'm hot on him too. But talk to me, Andrew. Who is prime to replace Kobe Hudson as wide receiver one this coming season?
Well, I am not a roulette player by any stretch, but you're right. You got to bet on black in this one. This is DJ Black, transfer from Limestone University, which is a D2 school that actually just closed their doors. He got away right before they announced that they're shutting down their school as a whole. They're gone completely. But originally came through University of South Carolina. So, I mean, he was an FBS player. Stepped down to a lower division, is back up at D1. But this is a guy that comes in as a veteran, 939 yards and 11 touchdowns last year. Statistically, he has the most numbers out of any of the guys that are here. UCF really had to hit the reset button, basically. Outside of a couple of yards, the entire wide receiving core was gone. So UCF starting over. DJ Black, a very talented guy, good size, 6'3", a $195. So this is he's got decent height, decent, build. That's the kind of wide receiver that you need to handle some of these physical backs that you'll see in Big 12 play. But I've got him as my number one. And if you look online, you'll see that a lot of the different newspapers around and different websites also agree that he's going to be one of those starters out there.
Yeah, look, DJ Black was a guy that committed to South Carolina out of high school. So he actually committed to an SEC school. A lot of guys, he was pretty sought after in that 2022 recruiting cycle. Ended up at Limestone for a couple of years, as you mentioned, in a very, very weird thing to see in college sports. His school shut down. Do you remember that movie?
Growing problem. I to take it off on the side a little bit. This is actually a growing problem of schools shutting down, especially all private schools in the lower divisions. A number of them have started doing it on a school near where I grew up, Notre Dame College, a Division II school, shut down a couple of years ago. It's a growing issue, but DJ Black got out in time. I do want to throw one more thing before I let you get back on your soapbox. DJ Black did run track. So he ran track in high school. He ran indoor track at South Carolina. So he was redshirt in football. He ran indoor track. So this is a guy built for speed, which is exactly what Scott Frost wants.
Yeah, he does. It's 6'3", 195 as well, too. So to run track at that height, he's a burner. And he has the potential to be the deep play threat on this team that they need this year. Going up at 6'3", you can go up and win 50-50 balls. If you've got the speed to burn, you're going to be able to make plays that not a lot of people can make. And if they have accurate quarterback play, DJ Black could be somebody who we see that pops up quite often on Saturdays when we're talking about guys on offense for UCF making plays. Now, Andrew, before we move on to running back, there was a second name that you had kind of as a 1B in this conversation that I want to talk about. Share with us, man. If not DJ, who's next up on your list?
The next guy I have is Chris Domercant. He's a transfer from Chattanooga. He also played at Stonehill, and Stonehill is a small Division I school in the Northeast Conference. As some of the obscure schools in the Northeast. So this is a guy who does have Division I experience on the lower subdivision. But you look at his numbers. He was consistent. Caught over 600 yards last year, over 500 yards the year before. This is the redshirt senior, so this is a lot of experience. Also, not an undersized guy, 6'1", 187 pounds. So this is a prototypical size receiver. Kind of what you need in this offense. And with the reset button being pushed, I know Day Farmer was a guy that I was really high on, but he got hurt. That kind of took the wind out of those sails. So obviously others have to step up. Chris Domercant, out of Chattanooga and Stonehill, a really talented guy. And then there's one other player I just want to throw in there real quick is Marcus Burke, the transfer from Florida. Now this is more of a blocking receiver than a receiving receiver. He's had a number of games, including against UCF, where he had he was on the field quite a bit. Obviously against UCF, not so much, but like over 30 snaps against Georgia, over 30 snaps against Texas. Now you're talking about two top 5 schools getting a lot of snaps. Over 30 snaps is a material amount in a single game. So this player with a lot of experience. He's going to be a redshirt senior this year, 6'3", 197 pounds. You've seen a trend here, aren't you? Very similar build receivers. This is obviously the kind of guy that Scott Frost is after. He'll get a 1-year rental out of him, and as well as Domercant as they build towards the future. But again, DJ Black, only a redshirt junior, has a chance for some continuity in this offense going from 1 year to the next.
Yeah, look, Chris Domercant, for our listeners at home on pod, is another name to watch here, per our guy Andrew Gluchov. Look, there's a high amount of transfers on this team, and this points to something that I feel like over these first 2 years, when you're trying to show proof of concept, if you're Scott Frost, you're showing off that you can recruit, but that also you understand how to identify and develop talent. This is going to be a very important piece for this staff as they try to grow their talent base and raise that talent floor at UCF to something that's going to provide a safer floor where we're no longer talking about missing a bowl game as an acceptable result for a season. So guys like Domercant and Black, man, I'm telling you, if they get it right, we talk about Black again, a guy who committed to a Division I school. So while he may have come from Limestone, it is important to remember that there's a lot of talent that gets lost in the portal, and some of these guys have to jump down to JUCO or Division II schools for a little bit and then come back. We've seen great success over the last 24 years of players who have notably gone the JUCO route and come back, or gone Division II and come back to Division I, and then found a better fit, Andrew, and absolutely killed it in their second life at the Division I level. So we'll keep an eye on DJ Black and Chris Domercant. But we got to also keep an eye on running back here. We're going to talk about the competition in the running back room right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money, guys. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase like a car or a house, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. And it's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. So whether you're managing your finances your own or co-managing multiple accounts with a partner, Monarch Money has a solution that works for you. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Get control of your finances today. Andrew, sources tell Locked On UCF that Jaden Nixon is beasting it in the running back room as we speak. As a matter of fact, we're recording this pretty late. I'm pretty sure he's on the field in his mind, scoring touchdowns right now for UCF. He's taking physical reps. He's taking mental reps. He is doing all the things you want out of a guy that transfer from Western Michigan, comes in here, and he is doing everything you could. Like, what this has been a home run for Scott Frost and this staff so far. So they've got a big hole to fill at running back with the guy over my shoulder behind me going on to the NFL. Before we started recording, we talked about it. He signed his deal. You said it was 4 years, $7.9 million. He signed for.
It was 7.6. More than 60% of it guaranteed. Quadzilla has been signed. CBS coined that phrase. I mean, I'll tell you what, RJ Harvey's quads have taken a life of
okay.
I mean, it's just that boy's got beast legs.
Oh my goodness! When they're giving you nicknames like Quadzilla, you did something special. Where you went to school. RJ Harvey has moved on. He leaves a 1,500-yard sized hole that UCF has to fill.
Yeah, and you don't replace that. You can't replace it. All you can do is mitigate as much as possible.
Yeah, look. So I like Myles Montgomery. I think he's a good running back. We thought he was during the season. We talked about it during the season last year. We started the show in October, so it was kind of mid-season, but before we started the show. But we got enough time to talk about Myles Montgomery in relief of RJ Harvey and him being a serviceable guy to step in and carry the load at times. But there's not a lot of stats to go on. There's nothing that he did at UCF that would cement him in the job. Now, I will tell you, a former Division I quarterback told me he once had a conversation with former Heisman winner Jason White. Jason White told him, he said, it doesn't matter if you just won the Heisman. This was after he had just won the Heisman. They're always trying to bring somebody in that's better than you. And if you're Myles Montgomery, that guy who's potentially better than you is Jaden Nixon. And from what we understand, he exemplifies what UCF football should be under Scott Frost. Hardworking, focused, like in the playbook, attention to detail. He's doing all these things right now, and I love hearing that coming out of there.
Yeah, there's a reason why Nixon was selected by Phil Steele, second team all preseason Big 12. The expectation is that he's going to be the guy, and this is been going on for a while. Where little birdies are telling us that he's tearing it up. Well, it's not a surprise. You look at his stats across the board, and he had a great season at West Virginia, over 900 yards rushing. Had not a huge amount in the receiving department, but was serviceable. He was backing Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State before that. He played at UCF in 2023 when Gordon got shut down and the curb stomping happened. This is not a guy, a slouch of a player. So I mean, he knows he can step up on an FBS level, be a starter. And Montgomery, while a great leader and a great guy, I mean, he's good as a change of pace back. And that really was a niche he kind of filled really well. And it would not surprise me if he reprises that. As we've seen, you're still going to get plenty of carries, plenty of action. But Nixon's done it all. He's returned kicks, he's caught the ball, he's run. I mean, he's done it all over his time at Oklahoma State and then later West Virginia. So, the fact that Nixon's, just tearing it up, it should not be a surprise to anyone. You need a guy who can handle the primary load. I mean, again, you can't replace RJ Harvey. You can only mitigate the loss of RJ Harvey. I think Nixon will do a decent job of that. He might be able to squeeze 1,000 yards. I don't think UCF's going to run the ball enough to really generate, more beyond that for your lead back, especially if you're going to have that change of pace with committee, because this is a very talented running back group. We talk about Nixon and Montgomery. There's a couple really talented young guys behind them that I think we need to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you said something that's where I want to go with the conversation next. It's about how much UCF is potentially going to run the ball here in 2025. If you're Scott Frost, this is a gift. Having a like a workhorse back in your first year, especially when you're trying to work out the passing game, and you got guys like, Jacurri Brown in there, who great athlete, but he got benched because he couldn't pass the ball effectively at times, and it really made UCF one-dimensional offensively. Being able to lean on the run, and particularly if you get up late in games, being able to control the clock and keep the ball on the ground and grind out first downs is an absolute gift for Scott Frost and McKenzie Milton. So I know these guys are going to want to throw it, but there are times where you have to run the football because strategically it's what you have to do. It's kind of like you see there passing when you don't have to, right? And stopping the clock rather than keeping the ball on the ground. I have watched college football team after college football team inexplicably do things late in game that make absolutely no sense, and it ends up costing them the game because they feel like, hey, why? Like, we do this well, so let's do it. You know what yours reminds me of? And I know I'm making a Super Bowl comparison, but Andrew, do you remember the Super Bowl that they didn't give the ball to Marshawn Lynch? Russell Wilson threw it from the 2-yard line,
and it was picked off.
The Super Bowl. It cost us the Super Bowl, right? And I don't know that UCF is going to be, in a Super Bowl type position this year, but I do know that it is likely that they may find themselves in some tight games as they did last year, and they're going to have to make the right call, and you cannot be influenced by your personnel to do unorthodox things that might cost you the game. So if you have a running back like Jaden Nixon who is showing you that he can handle those moments, it gives you more confidence to make the right call. Am I making sense here? Like, to make the right call in that moment, right? Rather than do something unorthodox that the situation doesn't call for, and it costs you a game.
The key is don't outcoach yourself. And that was a habit that Gus Malzahn had time and time again, where he would outcoach himself and make a boneheaded move. It's like you're looking at it and you're like, what is he thinking? Like, we're looking at the same thing. I'm looking at the field. I see the defense, the run, and it's like, where are you coming up with these ideas?
Right.
This was actually a problem that Scott Frost had in Nebraska with all those close losses. It got into his head, and he basically was out coaching himself and taking their team out of games. This is where he needs to settle back. And while he's going to take some lumps, you got to make sound decisions. You can't force the issue. And, when you got to, work the clock, man. Don't give free timeouts with incomplete passes that are completely unnecessary. Or if you need to move the ball downfield, you got to, have trained your quarterback to make smart decisions. Get out of the pocket, throw the ball away. Don't take sacks. Don't intentionally ground. Make smart decisions. That's all coaching related, because that's teachable stuff. Obviously you can't teach speed or strength. At that point, you can train it, but that's about it. But at the end of the day, you got to get these guys in the right frame of mind to make smart decisions on the field, and you have to make smart play calls off the field so that, they're making the right moves on the field.
Well, it's a lot easier when you have the personnel that can execute. When you have a guy that can go get you 2-3 yards and hold on to the football, right, and also not be loosey-goosey with it and fumble, and that comes back to the details that we here, Jaden Nixon is paying attention to now in the offseason. You are, as a player, you're built in the offseason, man. No player is built during the season. It is the work that's being put in right now that sets the precedent for the player that we are going to see in the fall. And I'm just very encouraged to hear that they have a culture that allows him to come in. If he was that guy, he's continuing to be that guy. And if he was kind of on the fence, he's clearly become that guy under these coaches down in Orlando. It bodes well for player development. It's something that Dante Carr talked a lot about in our interview with him about why he committed to Scott Frost and McKenzie Milton. He said, look, man, these guys didn't bullcrap me. They said, look, you're a project at quarterback and you have some work to do. And we feel like you can get there, but you're not there yet. And here are the things that we think you need to work on. And during the recruiting process, other schools were blowing smoke and they didn't. They were just honest. They were like, look, man, we want you to be a quarterback and you want to be a quarterback. But if you want to be a quarterback at this level, here's what you have to do. And that tells me that development is happening. So if you're Jaden Nixon, again, final thoughts before we move on, I'm so encouraged to hear that that's what's happening.
Yeah, well, the other thing you have to look at the development opportunities for Stacey Gage and Tayven Swint. Gage is a redshirt freshman, played a little bit last year. No official stats, but I mean, he played a little bit and then redshirted. And then Swint is a true freshman. These are both 4-star running backs. So, I mean, these are talented guys that have come in the door. Pay attention to their development because Frost developing these kind of players is what's going to attract other higher caliber athletes to want to come to UCF. If you can't handle developing a couple of 4-star guys, that's not going to bode well to get the next generation in there in the next class. So I would pay very particular attention to those guys. Not just what we're seeing during the season with Nixon and Montgomery, but what are these other guys doing? How are they looking? Are they getting opportunities too? When they do get opportunities, they take advantage of what do we see out of it? We didn't get a traditional spring game, so a lot of these questions are still kind of unanswered. But as we get into the season where there will be opportunities, in the case of Swint, I would estimate, unless injuries happen, that he will redshirt. So he'll have some limited play, but Gage is, he's already used his redshirt. So I think he'll end up being the third running back. And, if you look anywhere across the country, it is not unprecedented to have, 3 to 4 running backs have stats throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, all good stuff. What feeling does all this leave us with about UCF as we get closer to fall camp and week 1 game prep? We'll do a temperature check on the UCF Knights next on Locked On UCF. How do we feel? How do we feel about the Knights? They abolished the Big 12 media poll, preseason poll. So
because of what happened last year.
Yeah, we get to vote. But I feel a little more confident, I think, about where UCF stands. Scott Frost went to Big 12 Media Days, made a splash in the wrong way with some comments there. But it's all fun and games. But ultimately, it's time to talk football now. And man, Andrew, I cover college football. I cover UCF. I cover other schools. And I can tell you the question that I got asked a ton this week was, how does this coach turn the page? And I literally went on the Paul Feinbaum show and got asked this question. How does this coach turn the page back from this random storyline to football? And the answer was, it's time to play football. They got to play football because it's talking season right now. And we're talking about all these extraneous things. But when it comes down to it, UCF just needs to get back on the football field, and fans need to see where the program is truly headed under Scott Frost. We celebrated his return to Orlando. A lot of folks felt like it was the right move. He made a lot of really good choices in who he decided to bring back on his coaching staff. I think he has a solid staff. They're in a prove it mode for recruits. So recruiting isn't going to look super great, but if they are adept at identifying those diamonds in the rough and taking advantage of the portal, finding kids like Dante Carr and Kane Archer who have good upside, but also these kids don't really care about talking money right now, which I can tell you all week, man, every other question I got was about NIL go in the clearinghouse and, what may potentially happen after August 1st. If you're Scott Frost, you're building a roster full of kids who, at least for now, aren't going to be distracted by all the money things. And while other schools are having to manage that, you're just coaching football, and they may sneak up on a lot of people because of it.
Well, that's one reason why you get a general manager to manage these things.
Yes.
That was something that UCF did not have last year, and Gus Malzahn crashed and burned. He couldn't handle it. And to be fair, most coaches are going to struggle between maintaining the financial aspect and then trying to coach, football from a head coaching standpoint. Even Malzahn said, it's more of a CEO role than a coach role. And I can understand why he kind of lost the drive to be head coach if that's the new reality. I mean, Nick Saban wasn't happy about, a lot of coaches weren't happy about the way things were. Well, things are changing. We've got the house settlement in place. Schools are taking a more active role now with bringing, with the in-house portion of NIL with essentially, we can almost call it a salary cap, with the $20.5 million, bucket that they get to, distribute in, compensate and revenue sharing compensation. You've got numbers people to handle that stuff, and you're allowing the coaches to coach. Now they may do a little bit of negotiation with recruits and stuff, but by and large, they're going to let guys who do number stuff deal with that. And I think that makes it easier for a coach like Scott Frost to be, to embrace the new reality, because he was out of college football for a few years. So, he hasn't had to deal with this a whole lot, and to be able to come back in a new environment where the head coach doesn't have to necessarily be a CEO style coach, like it was the last handful of years, would play really well to him. He's planning on calling plays and stuff as he's done before. But I think it comes back to, it's all about developing the freshmen that are currently on the team. Because remember, Scott Frost was only, at UCF for 2 years. So he didn't have a great opportunity to showcase sustained growth. He had a few guys that turned the corner and did really well, and then blossomed more after he was gone. But now it's okay, new era. Show me you can develop players. Not just a quarterback, a running back. You need to develop a team. Can you develop some offensive linemen? Can you develop your wide receivers? Can you develop your defensive backs? It's we talk about McKenzie, Milton, and his growth from 2016 to 2017. Mario Verduzco was an outstanding quarterbacks coach with him. But look at the guys behind him. They didn't really grow a whole lot. So now it's okay. You did your 2-year stint. It looked great. You had found lightning in the bottle. You had a great talented group that you acquired. Now show me you can develop a whole team as opposed to just a few players and Adrian Killens, McKenzie Milton, some talented holdovers like, Jordan Akins or Traquan Smith. Now it's okay. Are you like every other coach is in the ability to develop, or did you just get lucky with the staff, with the roster that you had?
Agreed. Look, before we get out of here, Andrew, 1 to 10, how are you feeling about UCF football right now as we're recording this July 18th, 2025? 10 being, I feel great. UCF is going to win the national championship, the reincarnation of 2017, and 1 being, Gus is still here and we don't feel great about that.
I mean, I've been through some dark days. I was here for that 2015 year. I was there for 2004. With that team was bad. There's one thing where leadership just like leaves and you just have, talented guys, but no one's, keeping the boat and going in the right direction. The boat in 2004 took on so much water that Mike Sims Walker and Brandon Marshall had to move from offense to defense and had to play, and they were the leading guys in interceptions and tackles by the end of the year. I mean, that was rough. So I've seen bad. So as a result, I'm kind of between a 5 and a 5.5. I'm still of the camp that they can win 6 games. This is a team that can do it. They can win the non-conference games. I'm not sold that North Carolina is going to come here and just humiliate UCF. I think this is a talented group of Knights. It all comes back to getting the team to gel in the month and change that we have before the first game. Jacksonville State had a great year last year, but they lost their coach and they lost the bulk of those players that had such a great run. So that's a relatively new team, not nearly as good as last year. And then you have NC A&T, North Carolina A&T, an HBCU in the FCS level that's really struggled since switching conferences a few years ago. I think that one's going to be a really good tune-up game. And then you got like games like West Virginia, Houston, Cincinnati. I think UCF can win some of these games and then maybe even steal one of one of the bigger games. I am not sold that UCF cannot win. I know that's a double negative. That's not allowed. But 6-6 is still not out of the realm of possibility. So I'm kind of between a 5 and a 5.5 on my temperature. As we get closer and camp starts to kind of, make this team kind of take more of a shape, and then we start actually seeing on-field stuff, obviously that's going to change.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I'm about in the middle right now, but I'm leaning toward a 6 or a 7 because
you are a confident man there.
Yeah, reports are that what they're putting down, the players are taking it, and they are really starting to understand what it means to be a UCF football player. Because I'm telling you, that means something different now than it did 8 months ago when Gus was the coach of this team. I think that they've reset the culture. I think they've reminded a lot of the players that they should take pride in putting that jersey on, because the brand of football that they're going to play is going to be focused and it's going to be disciplined. And I can't wait to see what that looks like in the fall. Guys, that's it for another great edition of Locked On UCF. Well, my guy, Andrew Gluchov, before we get out of here, I want to remind you guys to check out our friends at The Portal Show. Thank you for making us your first listen. But for your second listen, you can go on over to The Portal Show with Brian Smith. He has the latest in rumors, portal entries, and signings. You can be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to college football. Find The Portal Show on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, and find us here on Locked On UCF.